I had some. You know what? We're just gonna ignore that part. We're gonna go in a different direction. So
Okay.
when you brought up the whole thing about like why, like people were asking like why did you do it? Like why are we making another editor? I think it's kind of two things here, and it kind of goes back to firstly that XKCD where it's like, hey, there's 13 standards. Oh, we're gonna make the universal standard. Oh, there's 14 standards now. The other
Yeah.
thing is I think a lot of people look at, like, especially people who are not developers, they look at work being done in the FOSS world as if it's kind of like some big mega corporation, right? Where if you're working on this fun thing that you like, you're not working on the problem they have. Even if you were never going to work on that problem, some people look at it as you could be better spending though that time on something more important, some problem they have, something where, you know, is going to affect more people.
That's what the fuck are you on about? What?
I've run into
Hang
a
on a
lot of
second.
people like this where it's like, oh, why are people working on another desktop environment instead of working on this desktop environment instead? It's just like, that's just not how people allocate their time.
Okay, I need to take that in for a second. Honestly, that's insane.
Yeah.
What?
This
Let
is
me
what
try and
happens
see
when
it
you have
from
a
their
YouTube channel and you get all manner of commenters on it.
Yeah, I'm sure all kinds of people. I mean, you talk about on your channel from my memory. Correct me if I'm wrong. I might be mixing you up with other people potentially. Sorry.
So good, too
Um,
good. Don't worry about
some of the things you do cover is stuff that's like fringe projects, right? So people, I'm
it.
sure people come to you and complain like, "Oh God, why are they but daring to make this thing? They should be fixing my problem or something." Let me just think about that for a second because I've literally I think I'm vaguely aware of maybe that sentiment somewhere in the background, but I'm surprised. Okay, so this is like what is this like your day-to-day experience from people? They
Pretty
say these
much,
kind of
yeah.
things. Jesus
Especially like when I
Christ.
talk about something like the Cosmic Desktop, for example. You know, you have people say like,
Oh,
why are they making like the Cosmic Desktop? They could work on this other desktop that already exists. Like, well, what's the point here?
I need to think about this to be honest, because I want to respond in like what I hope is a coherent way from a perspective of someone that does
It's fine. The
can
commenters
work on
aren't
open.
coherent anyway, so
Sorry.
it's fine. Some of the commenters aren't coherent anyway.
Okay. Well, I mean, I don't know. They deserve a coherent answer if I can
Sure,
make one.
sure, I get
I
that.
think I'm just trying to think from their point of view, so I can try and answer from a place that makes sense to them in a way. I think. Okay. Um, that makes sense. I think I understand a bit more now as to why people would maybe respond in like an angry capacity when they found out that you're working on something that they think is superfluous or not relevant or like something. What you said about open source being a big so hang on so you think that sorry not you think your impression from people some of them is that open source is what like a large overarching corporation or something.
That's sort of like
Do they actually think that?
no, I don't think they like actually think that. I think that's like sort of the I don't know. They see work being done and feel like you like if you weren't working on that thing, you'd be working on some other thing that they might think is important. If that makes sense.
Okay, let me think. I think I know how to answer this in a short. Think about the thing you like, and realize that the only reason you know that thing exists and you like it is because a random person decided to make it one day. That should be a good enough answer. I feel like because, yeah, I mean, wow. I think okay. I think I can see it from their point of view in a way as well because, I imagine it's like once you get good at something. Okay, this sounds like I'm bigging myself up or something. Okay. Once you recognize improvement in yourself over some skill, I think it's quite easy, and I find this all the time, to completely forget what it was like to not have that level of skill. And conversely, I think it's probably the same for people that desire a skill and haven't quite reached it yet. To be honest, a lot of the intrigue and the magic of stuff can sort of go away once you do that skill. Like for example, a great example is I'm actually fiddling with it right now because I fiddle with everything all the time. I have a Rubik's Cube on my desk, right? And I was always like, oh my god, it's like magic. How do they do that thing? And then I learned it and I was like, oh, well, that was disappointing. I feel like it's it's somehow related to what we're talking about, because learning things is hard. Your brain hurts, right? Especially if it's something you didn't learn in school, or like there's been no suggestion or hint from society or your peers that you would ever need to do this thing, or it would ever be useful or whatever. I think unless it's been, within the last 10 years or something, I think programming is a good example of that. If you didn't, like, I didn't go to university to do anything, right? So I just randomly decided to learn programming one day. Well, okay, that's a bit more complicated than that. I won't go into the whole backstory about where I came from and why, but I kind of started learning programming for its own sake, in a way. And I feel like that helped to try and progress. It wasn't so much what I was making, it was more just like an interesting set of puzzles to solve. I'm trying to relate. So I imagine a lot of people that are complaining about this, for whatever reason, they either decided they can't program, or they've tried and they decided they can't.
Well, it may not admit that they can't program it. Maybe they look at some big project and don't really know how to get involved in it, right? Like, you see a project that's 50,000 lines of code long. That is really difficult to sort of understand to an extent where you can effectively contribute, especially in a case where a lot of FOSS projects aren't really well documented in the code. So it kind of takes a while to get yourself up to speed to make something actually productive.
Well, I mean, if we're talking about the people that are complaining that other developers, well, sorry, not other, that developers as a group choosing to work on things that they don't care about, I would imagine that those people are the ones that aren't actually contributing themselves to anything.
Right.
Because otherwise they wouldn't care about that, because they would just do it themselves, I would have thought, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think about it from their point of view, those people. For whatever reason, they don't feel like they can personally contribute to something. And so I guess if they're frustrated about an issue with a project they care about, and they've seen the issue sit there for 6 months and no one's touched it, and then they hear about another project that's come up somewhere else, and they're like, "Oh my god, this is an outrage! How dare they make something else? They should have come over to my project that only 5 people know about and fixed the one issue that I raised 6 months ago, and the author's not addressed yet, or something." That's an insane worldview, I think, to have just about anything. Like, that's just I can't believe that that's really how they think. Like, I don't know. Do you know what I mean? It's just
no, I get what you're saying.
It's like, for one thing, you don't know whether that person that's working on the other project even knows how to deal with your project. Like, it might be a completely, the programming space is such a massive ecosystem. I don't, like, for example, there's a project I kind of lurk on called Lamine, which is a bootloader, and sometimes I go on the chat and ask them why are you working, why not why are you working on this, because obviously I'd be a hypocrite. But I mean, like, I ask them, like, how much work does this thing really need? Like, it's a bootloader. Why are you still working on this? Like, surely there's only a certain number of things you need to do. What's the dealio? And they're like, well, it needs to support all architectures and all combinations of operating systems and BIOSes. And I'm like, oh, okay, now I understand.
I had literally no idea this existed until just now. I've never heard of this.
Yeah, I don't know. It's actually, interestingly, this kind of relates to the V project in a way. I only found out about it because as being kind of a fringe member of the V community, the V language community, which is relevant by the, I guess we haven't mentioned this at all yet, but the V language is a thing, and one of the main kind of projects out of that was this operating system called Vinix, which is an implementation of a kernel in V to demonstrate that you can do that without like doing without doing weird stuff. Like, for example, someone's making a kernel in Go, and I think they're using the TinyGo compiler because it's the only one that like doesn't automatically require runtime support stuff. So, and then the way they do things is the Go kernel, it basically specifically uses Go features that doesn't require a memory runtime, and then eventually it bootstraps the garbage collector to like start up and do things. Whereas V is like,
you said the name was Vinix, yes?
Sorry?
You said the name of that project was Vinix, yes?
It should. I think it is. Yeah.
No, sorry, that's just a really inconvenient name because there is a Linux distro also called Vinix.
Oh no! Oh damn! Okay, well, shit. I don't know which one came first, but maybe someone needs to talk about that. Okay. Anyway, just to say that the person that was mainly kind of developing that is called Mint, and I don't know what who they are. It doesn't really matter. But I was like lurking on what they do. I was like, this is really cool. I've always been fascinated by just the idea of making a kernel, and I've always been like against trying to, sorry, not against, this is kind of the wrong way of saying it. I think the way I try and approach things like that is like, I need to know how everything works from the ground up. Like if I was going to write a kernel, I would need to know where to start in terms of like, I would want to understand how when the power turns on, like how does the CPU start doing its thing? What is the ALU? Where does it live? I think it's inside the CPU from my memory. And is it like a hardware-based sequence that does all of the like peripheral exploration to figure out what's there and what isn't? And I would need to learn all of that stuff. So I wouldn't ever do anything because I'd be too busy learning about all the minutia. Anyway, so I was so because of that, I followed these projects to just see what they're up to. And I noticed one of the main ones Mint does in aside from Linux and the operating system in V, is this project called Lamine, which is the bootloader thing. I can't even remember where I was talking about this now. I think I was just trying to say, yeah, that's it. Like, so, but I wouldn't be able to deal with, I have no idea how to write a bootloader. What a bootloader? What? I don't know. Something kernel boot IO something. So like, what are you talking about? Like, why would a random person that's doing with a project over here? Why is it offensive to you that I'm not working on another project? You have no idea who I am. You don't know what I care about. You don't know what I know. What I don't know. What the fuck? Like, so it's just such a weird. To be completely frank, it feels like an entitled, childish point of view to have.
Yeah.
And I almost can't comprehend that exists as a concept. I'm just struggling to understand. I'm trying to relate to them, and I'm trying to respond in a way that they can maybe see it from someone else's point of view, but I don't know how to do it in a polite, coherent way because it's just a weird way of thinking.
Right.